Okay, I've tested this budget heater, 3 of the latest DREO models, and also the brand new Dyson, and I have to say the results have been surprising. Hey folks, Simon here from Simon's Reviews, and today I've got 5 heaters to show you, and we're going to figure out which of these will be best for you to get through this winter. Now, quick transparency, this video has been sponsored by DREO, although they are not controlling the results, and every heater here is being tested fairly. And with all this snow we've had, I think this is the perfect weather to be testing out these heaters. And just to go through them, we've got the baseline model here. So this is what we're pitting the others up against. This is your basic budget heater. This model is the Warmlite heater, and it has a rated output of up to 2000 watts. It doesn't really have many other features though, but it is very cheap. And next up we have the first of the 3 DREO models. This is their Space Heater 316S. This is quite possibly one of their most portable heaters, designed for smaller rooms, very easy to move around, and has a number of exciting features that we would expect from a DREO heater. Next up from DREO we have their whole room heater. As you can see, a little bit of a step up in terms of size from this model here. However, the whole room heater does bring a couple of additional things to the table, and its output power is 2000 watts. Then over here we have our tower heaters, starting with the DREO Tower, also known as Solaris. The model for this is 718. Again, this is a 1500 watt model and is pitted up against the Dyson heater over here. Definitely the most premium in terms of price. This thing isn't cheap. This is also rated at 2000 watts. However, are the features on offer with the Dyson going to justify the increase in cost over some of these other models? Well, let's get into it and find out. Now, something I find interesting with DREO as a brand is that they've absolutely exploded in the heater and fan market over the last few years. In fact, for the last 2 years running, they are the #1 brand for the number of heaters sold on Amazon in both UK and US. So back to this end of the table, the Warmlite heater here, which is by far and away the most budget model on the table. It's very cheap and it has very basic features. Okay, you press the button, out comes the heat. And if that's all you're going to care about, then actually, you know, this might not be a bad choice. However, what I would say is there are a number of features that these other heaters have that are missing here that you may not necessarily think about, but once you know about them, you definitely don't want to do it without. But before we move up, just to clarify, as a budget basic model, this thing does not have any advanced controls. There's no timer, there's no thermostat in order to detect the ambient temperature and set heating accordingly. There's no remote control and no app support. So definitely be cautious about using this long term, as if you just turn this on and leave it to do its thing, it's eventually going to really guzzle into your electricity bill. And in fact, that's one of the areas I want to focus on first, because the 3 DREO models here all have a dedicated eco mode. Now, what this is going to do is it's a special setting that you can turn on, and then once the room ambient temperature has reached the threshold that you've set, then the eco mode is automatically going to adjust the output of the heaters in order to save on running costs. It's a really clever feature, and especially over long-term use, it's going to make a notable difference. In fact, for the space heater and the whole room heater, DREO are saying that you can expect up to 40% energy savings in eco mode, and with their tower heater, this actually increases to 50%, which is remarkable. I am surprised that the Dyson here doesn't come with a dedicated eco mode. For a heater at this price point, that is something I would have expected. Yes, you can absolutely still set the target temperature with the Dyson, which is really helpful, but it will simply switch itself on and off in accordance with that temperature, which isn't always the best thing to do economically, and it won't adjust the heat levels in an intelligent way. Now, of course, with any heater product, protection and safety is super important and a factor to consider. And thankfully, all of these models on the table have all your basic safeties in place, including the budget model, which it has overheat protection and tip over protection as well. Same with the Dyson too. The DREOs do go the extra mile. They have what they are advertising their Shield 8-in-1 safety setup, including on all 3 of these models a child lock that can be enabled as well. Now, something that Dyson does push in its marketing is that this isn't just a heater. This is both a hot and cool appliance, so it can serve as a fan as well. And I have to say, it does work very well as a cool fan, so you can absolutely use this all year round, even in the summer months. But that isn't necessarily a unique feature for a heater. In fact, every model on this table can be used as a standard fan. None of them will actually have air conditioning, so it's not that sort of cooling, including the Dyson. It is just a fan without the heating element engaged. But honestly, all 5 models here can be adequately used during the hot months if you need some cooling. Now, the Dyson does have a very unique design. It definitely has that Dyson feel to it. And the top part of the heater here is what Dyson are calling the loop amplifier. And it does provide one unique feature. And that is you can set 2 different modes here. The jet focus mode, which basically pushes the air out in a straight line and has some good distance and oomph with it. Or you can set it to diffused mode, which pushes the air out more as a beam from the sides. And that diffused mode will work best when you want to heat the room more evenly. However, if whole room heating is important to you, but you don't want to have to splash out the amount of money that Dyson are asking for, then definitely take a look at the DREO whole room heater right here. It's kind of in the name. So you've probably seen heaters and fans that will oscillate horizontally. Well, the whole room heater will oscillate both horizontally and vertically and can do so at the same time. And in my testing, it has done a fantastic job. For the other models, the budget does not have oscillation, neither does the DREO space heater. The tower does have horizontal oscillation up to 120 degrees, and you can set that in intervals. And the Dyson can oscillate as well horizontally up to 70 degrees, and it doesn't have a vertical oscillation as the whole room heater from DREO does, but it does have a kind of vertical manual adjustment. Now, when you're in a cold room and you put your heater on, you want it to try and warm the place up as quickly as possible. That's why you're using it. And actually, this is another area where DREO does shine, because they have trademarked what they're calling their hyperamic technology, which is present in all 3 of these DREO models. And what this tech will do, in comparison to this specific Dyson model, is actually heat up twice as quick. And you're getting that tech as standard with your DREO heater. But what about the noise? Because especially if you're using the heater at night or maybe in the summer just as a fan, you don't want it absolutely bellowing like a jet engine. Well, perhaps no surprise here, the budget model doesn't fare so well. It is very noisy, at least in comparison to these other 4 heaters that we have, and it does pack out some decibels. So as an example, I've got the DREO whole room heater here on H1 setting, which is the first setting, and I can't even hear it. It is really quiet. I can feel the heat coming out really nicely, even from a distance here, but it is very quiet sound-wise. In fact, let's go ahead now and just pop it onto the second setting. So it is a little bit louder now, but still, as far as heater fans go, really quiet. If I go ahead and turn this off, and pop on the Warmlite budget model on its lowest setting, it really is a noisy heater in comparison. You can definitely tell the difference. With the DREO space heater and the DREO whole room heater both having settings to allow them to be used at just 34 decibels, and the DREO tower heater here actually having a setting for it to be used at just 25. The Dyson on its lowest setting is 37 decibels, which isn't quite the whisper quietness that you get with these DREO models, but it is still very impressive for a heater. Now, in terms of controlling the settings, all but the budget heater over here have touch controls. However, the Warmlite heater doesn't have a remote control. All 4 of these other models do. And one thing I actually like with the Dyson's design is how the remote control magnetically attaches to the top of it when it's not in use. Just keeps that safe. And totally optional, but the DREO space heater and the DREO whole room heater both have app support in the UK and the EU. And you get a wealth of settings at your fingertips within the app. You can easily set up schedules and times of days for these to come on and go off, and the temperature settings. And actually, the DREO app is a really good app. I would have liked to have seen the tower heater here on that app. I'm not sure why DREO made the choice not to include that. But in conclusion, well, all 5 of the heaters do actually do a decent job of warming up the room. However, if you are looking at using a heater more long term, I would definitely encourage you to perhaps move away from the Warmlite option, just because long term this is going to be getting quite expensive to run. But if the portability appeals to you for this model, then maybe check out the DREO space heater here, which is by far and away one of the most portable heaters I've ever used. And thanks to the eco mode that DREO have included, eventually the extra outset cost will effectively pay for itself. On the other hand, if you want something a little beefier and like the sound of the whole room heating of the Dyson, then DREO have you covered here with a much cheaper option than the Dyson with their whole room heater. The horizontal and vertical oscillations here is a really interesting design. And the fact that this can output up to 2000 watts as well makes this one of the more powerful heaters that we have on the desk today. The tower here from DREO is obviously a great choice as well, especially if you want something that can run quieter. That 25 decibel option, you can barely even hear it when it's turned on to that, and yet you can definitely still feel the heat being output. I would have liked to have seen this included in the app support, but it's not a huge deal. You still get full control with the on-screen touch panel and also with the included remote. And that leaves us with the Dyson AM09, which, let's be honest, it's a Dyson heater. It looks like a Dyson. It has that vibe to it. And I'm not going to deny the fact it does perform very well, because it does. Providing you that choice with how to propel the air from the heater is definitely something that's unique here. I've not seen that before in a heater. But as interesting as that is, it doesn't really, in terms of performance, offer anything much more than, say, the whole room heater here. And also with the other features that DREO are offering here with all three of their models, I just feel it would be a little bit hard to justify the huge additional expense that Dyson would be expecting you to pay. So if portability and energy use is important to you, I would definitely check out the space heater here. It's definitely a space saver, but still has some great features. If you want to have that whole room heating, then rather than spending huge amounts on the Dyson, definitely check out the DREO whole room heater. But of course, if you are on a very tight budget, then the Warmlite here will definitely perform, albeit with some compromises having to be made. So folks, hopefully this comparison video has helped you out. Thank you so much for stopping by. Let me know what you think, and if you've used any of these heaters, what your thoughts are on them, and I will see you next time. Take care everyone, and stay warm.